to Ethoria Channel.
This is the Archaeology of Self, where we dig through the layers of who you think you are to uncover who you actually are. I'm your philosophical archaeologist, and over the next 6 episodes, we're going on the most important excavation of your life. By episode 6, you'll have completely reconstructed your authentic self from the ground up. But first, we need to understand why feeling lost isn't your problem, it's your solution. This isn't a story for your eyes. That's why there are no visuals, no bright colors, just a voice, and the silence between the sentences. If they help you, the words will also appear on screen. Stay, because this isn't regular video. This is a space. A space for you, your thoughts, your feelings. Maybe you've been running from silence. Maybe you've forgotten what your inner voice sounds like. This is your invitation to return to yourself. No noise, no mask, no need to prove anything, just you and what you're about to hear. Episode 1, if you're feeling lost, it's actually good. Why your collapse is your compass. You feel lost? Perfect. Here's why that's not your weakness. It's your calling. Picture someone who followed all the rules, did everything right, studied what they were supposed to study, worked where they were supposed to work, dated who they were supposed to date, and then one day, the breaking. That person, that's you. That breaking, that's your beginning. Not every breakdown is a collapse. Sometimes it's an excavation. The strongest people you know, they've all been exactly where you are right now, broken, confused, staring at their life like it's written in a language they suddenly can't read. But here's what they won't tell you in those motivational posts. Being lost isn't your problem. It's your solution. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote about something he called being condemned to be free. The terrifying realization that you have to choose who you become. You know what that means? It means this feeling, this terrible, beautiful emptiness. It's not a bug in your system. It's the feature. Your consciousness is finally waking up. It's waking up to the fact that you've been living someone else's life. Who told you who you should be? Was it your parents? Society? That voice in your head that sounds suspiciously like everyone except you? Look closer. When did you last make a choice that felt like it came from your bones? Really think about it. When did you last say no to something everyone expected you to say yes to? You're not lost. You're excavating. Listen to that word. Archaeological work. You're digging through layers of other people's expectations, other people's dreams, other people's fears that somehow became yours. And it's messy work. Archaeological work always is. Think about actual archaeologists for a moment. They don't just show up with a shovel and start digging randomly. They study the terrain. They understand that civilizations build on top of each other, layer by layer, generation by generation. Each layer tells a story, each artifact holds a truth. But to get to the oldest, most authentic layer, the bedrock of who a place really is, they have to carefully remove everything that was built on top of it. That's exactly what's happening to you right now. The life you thought you wanted? That's the most recent layer. The beliefs you think are yours? Those might be from 3 layers down, inherited from your family's layer. The fears that stop you from taking risks? Those could be ancient deposits from a culture that valued safety over authenticity. And right now, you're standing in the excavation site of your own existence, holding a brush, carefully cleaning the dirt off artifacts you've never seen before, wondering, is this mine? Or does this belong to someone else? The Buddhists speak of bardo, the liminal space between death and rebirth. It's that moment when one incarnation has ended, but the next hasn't begun yet. You're floating in pure, potential pure consciousness with no fixed identity to cling to. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. Nietzsche would call this Übermensch territory, the space where you create your own values instead of inheriting them. He wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But what he really meant was, what breaks me open allows me to rebuild myself from the inside out. Both Buddha and Nietzsche understood something profound. The old you must die for the authentic you to emerge. In modern psychological terms, this is what happens when your performed identity, the version of yourself you present to the world, finally dissolves. But your authentic self hasn't fully emerged yet. You're in your philosophical crossroads right now. Buddha says, let go of who you were. Nietzsche says, become who you are. Different paths, same destination, and you're suspended in this terrifying electric space between who you were and who you're becoming. This suspension, this is where miracles happen. This is where authentic transformation occurs. Not in the comfort of knowing exactly who you are, but in the courage of not knowing and choosing to find out anyway. Stop trying to find your way back. There is no back. There's only through. And in the quiet after that realization, listen, do you hear it? That small voice that's been whispering to you your whole life, drowned out by all the noise of other people's expectations? That voice that speaks up in the shower, in the car, in those moments between sleep and waking? That's not your inner critic. That's your inner archaeologist. That's the part of you that has been cataloging every moment when you betrayed yourself to please someone else. Every time you said yes when you meant no. Every dream you abandoned because someone else couldn't see its value. That voice has been keeping meticulous records. It knows exactly where to dig. You want to know why you feel lost? Because you've been found by everyone else. Think about it. You've been so available, so accommodating, so desperate to be needed that you forgot to need yourself. You became a mirror, reflecting back what others wanted to see, smiling when they needed you to smile, agreeing when they needed you to agree, disappearing when they needed space to be themselves. And mirrors don't have faces. Let me tell you about mirrors for a moment. A mirror's entire purpose is to show you something else. It has no independent existence, no personal agenda, no private thoughts. It simply reflects. And the tragedy of human mirrors, people like you, is that you become so good at reflection that you forget you were meant to be a person, not a surface. Carl Jung wrote about the terror of self-acceptance. He understood that most people spend their entire lives avoiding the one person they can never escape, themselves. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But here's what he really meant. We hate in others what we've disowned in ourselves. That person who always speaks their mind without caring what others think. You might call them selfish, but really you envy their authenticity. That person who pursues their dreams despite practical concerns. You might call them irresponsible, but really you mourn your own abandoned aspirations. Sartre approached this from another angle entirely. He talked about the anxiety of freedom, the overwhelming terror that comes with realizing you are completely responsible for who you become. Sartre said, "Man is condemned to be free." What he meant was, you cannot not choose. Even choosing not to choose is a choice. Even letting others decide for you is your choice to give away your power. Two different men, same insight. The fear isn't of being rejected by others. It's of discovering who you actually are when you stop performing for their approval. Jung says, you can't accept what you don't know. Sartre says, you can't escape what you refuse to choose. Translation, you can't love yourself if you don't know yourself, and you can't know yourself if you've never allowed your authentic self to exist. Think about this. When was the last time you were alone, truly alone, without any input? No music, no podcasts, no books, no social media, no conversations. Just you and your thoughts. How long did it last before you reached for a distraction? This isn't a judgment, this is archaeology. We're examining the evidence. Most people can't sit alone with themselves for more than a few minutes without becoming profoundly uncomfortable. Why? Because in the silence, in the absence of external validation and distraction, they come face to face with all the parts of themselves they've been hiding from, the dreams they've abandoned, the anger they've swallowed, the sadness they've postponed, the authentic self they've buried under layers of people-pleasing and performance. You've been running from yourself your entire life. And now, in this moment of feeling lost, you've finally stopped running. You've finally turned around to face what you've been running from. And what you're discovering is both terrifying and liberating. You weren't running from a monster. You were running from yourself. The real you. The authentic you. The you that has opinions, desires, boundaries, dreams that don't make sense to anyone else. Let yourself sit with this question. Archaeological question. Write down the last 10 major decisions you made. Now cross out the ones that were made to please someone else, to avoid conflict, or to maintain an image. What's left? Take your time with this. Really examine each decision. Was it made from fear or from love? Was it made to gain approval or to honor your truth? Was it made because it felt right in your body or because it looked right on paper? Look at what remains after you cross out the performed decisions. This is your authentic self speaking. These are the artifacts of who you really are when you're not trying to be who others need you to be. Not every answer requires a voice. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen in silence, in the space between questions, in the pause before you perform your expected response. This lostness you're feeling, it's not loss, it's shedding. Imagine a snake that's outgrown its skin. The old skin isn't bad or wrong. It served its purpose perfectly. It protected the snake when it was smaller, more vulnerable. But now that skin has become a prison. It's too tight, restricting movement, preventing growth. The process of shedding is supposed to be uncomfortable. The snake doesn't shed its skin because it wants to. Sheds because it has to. Because keeping the old skin would mean death by restriction. You are that snake. And the identity you've outgrown isn't evil. It was exactly what you needed when you created it. But now, it's suffocating you. What you're really losing. The comfort of other people's blueprints for your life. Think about how easy it was when someone else had already figured out what you should do, who you should be, what success should look like. No decisions to make, no risks to take, no failures to own. Just follow the path that's already been laid out. But comfort isn't the same as fulfillment. Comfort is often the enemy of growth. Comfort keeps you safe, but safety isn't the same as aliveness. You can be safe and dead at the same time, emotionally, creatively, spiritually dead while your body goes through the motions of living. The safety of never having to choose who you are. When you let others define you, you never have to take responsibility for who you become. If it doesn't work out, you can blame them. If you're unhappy, it's their fault for giving you the wrong instructions. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. Taking responsibility for who you are isn't a burden, it's the ultimate freedom. It means you have the power to change. It means you're not stuck with who you've been. It means you can become whoever you choose to become. The luxury of blaming others for your unhappiness. This might be the hardest thing to give up. Blame is so comfortable, so righteous, so energizing. It gives you someone to be angry at instead of having to feel the sadness of your own choices. It gives you an external enemy instead of having to face the internal work. But blame is also a prison. As long as you're focused on how others have wronged you, you're giving them power over your happiness. You're making your well-being dependent on their actions, their apologies, their changes. You're essentially saying, I can't be happy until they become different people. How's that working out for you? The identity you built on being needed rather than being whole. This is the big one. This is the foundation that everything else was built on. The belief that your worth comes from your usefulness to others. That love is earned through service. That value is measured by how much others depend on you. This identity felt so good for so long, didn't it? Being the helper, the fixer, the one everyone could count on. It gave you purpose, importance, a clear role in every relationship. But it also meant you never learned how to exist without someone else's need to define you. You never developed an internal sense of worth that didn't depend on external validation. You never asked yourself, who am I when no one needs anything from me? And that's terrifying. Because if you're not who they need you to be, who are you? Here's the truth they don't want you to know. You are whoever you choose to be when no one is watching. You are the thoughts you think when you're alone. You are the dreams you have when you stop censoring them. You are the values you hold when they don't benefit anyone else. You are the boundaries you maintain when they're inconvenient for others. You are the person you become when you stop performing. But to find that person, you have to stop being findable to everyone else. This is what spiritual teachers mean when they talk about dying before you die. The person you thought you were. The performer, the people pleaser, the mirror, that person has to die. Not literally, but psychologically. That identity has to dissolve so that your authentic self can emerge, and dissolution always feels like death, even when it's actually birth. In the space between their expectations and your truth, breathe. Feel your chest rise and fall. Feel your heartbeat. Feel the life force moving through your body that has nothing to do with anyone else's opinion of you. This breath, this heartbeat, this aliveness, this is yours. This belongs to no one else. This is the foundation you can build your authentic self on. The question, are you ready to be unavailable? Imagine this. You stopped answering immediately. You stopped being the solution to everyone else's problems. You became unreachable, mysterious, selective. What would happen? Really sit with this question. Don't just think about it intellectually. Feel into it. What emotions come up when you imagine being unavailable? Fear of being abandoned, rejected, forgotten. Guilt for disappointing others, letting them down. Anxiety about not being needed anymore, or relief at the thought of not having to constantly manage other people's emotions. The people who truly value you would wait. They would respect your boundaries. They would understand that your unavailability isn't rejection, it's self-care. They would trust that when you do show up, you're showing up as your authentic self, not as a performance. The people who only valued your availability would disappear. They would move on to the next person willing to be constantly accessible. They would complain about how you've changed, how you're not the same person anymore, how selfish you've become. And that's not loss. That's clarity. Let me tell you about two types of relationships: transactional and transformational. Transactional relationships are based on what you do for each other. I'll be your friend if you're always available to listen to my problems. I'll love you if you make my life easier. I'll stay close if you never challenge me or require anything from me. These relationships feel safe because the terms are clear, but they're also fragile because they depend on your continued performance. The moment you stop being useful, the relationship ends. Transformational relationships are based on who you are, not what you do. These people love your complexity, your contradictions, your growth edges. They're not threatened by your evolution, they celebrate it. They don't need you to stay the same to feel secure in the relationship. Most of your relationships right now are probably transactional. And that's why the thought of being unavailable is so scary. You're afraid that if you stop performing, stop being useful, stop being convenient, everyone will leave, and you might be right. Some people will leave, but the ones who stay, those are your people. Those are the relationships worth having. Those are the people who will love you for who you are, not just for what you do. Albert Camus wrote about what he called the fundamental question of philosophy, whether life is worth living. But here's what he really meant. There's one truly serious question you face every day: whether to live your life or someone else's version of it, whether to be authentically miserable or inauthentically happy, whether to face the terror of freedom or hide in the comfort of conformity. Your lostness is your answer. You've chosen to live, really live. Not just exist, not just survive, not just go through the motions, but to live authentically, messily, imperfectly, but genuinely. Camus also wrote, "In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer." Your lostness is your winter, cold, dark, seemingly endless. But within that lostness, if you listen carefully, you can feel it. The invincible summer of your authentic self, waiting to emerge. Feel into the choice, not the justification. Don't try to rationalize why it's okay to choose yourself. Don't create elaborate arguments for why you deserve to be unavailable sometimes. Just feel into the choice itself. Feel into what it would be like to say no without explaining yourself. To have preferences without justifying them. To exist without performing. How does that feel in your body? Does it feel like expansion or contraction? Does it feel like coming home or running away? Your body knows the truth before your mind does. Your body has been keeping score of every time you betrayed yourself to please someone else. It knows the difference between authentic yes and performed yes. It knows when you're living from your center and when you're living from your edges. Trust what your body tells you about this choice. Becoming unreachable. Here's your first archaeological tool, sacred unavailability. But before we dive into the practical steps, let's understand what we mean by sacred. Sacred doesn't mean religious. It means set apart, protected, honored. When something is sacred, you don't sacrifice it for convenience. You don't negotiate with it for approval. You don't apologize for its existence. Your authentic self is sacred. Your inner voice is sacred. Your dreams, your boundaries, your need for solitude, these are sacred, and sacred things require protection. For the next 7 days, practice becoming unreachable. Turn off, read receipts. This is bigger than it sounds. Read receipts, create an expectation of immediate response. They turn every message into a demand for your attention. When you turn them off, you reclaim the right to respond when you're ready, not when others expect you to be ready. Notice what happens when you do this. Do you feel anxious about people not knowing whether you've seen their message? Do you worry they'll think you're ignoring them? This anxiety is data. It's showing you how much of your peace you've sacrificed for other people's convenience. Don't respond to messages immediately, even if you see them, even if you have time, even if you know the answer. Create space between receiving and responding. This isn't about being rude, it's about being intentional. In that space, ask yourself, am I responding from authenticity or from obligation? Am I saying what I mean or what I think they want to hear? Am I honoring my truth or performing my expected role? Say, let me think about it, instead of automatic, yes. This phrase is revolutionary. It creates space for your authentic response to emerge. It protects you from overcommitting. It honors the fact that you need time to check in with yourself. Before making decisions, most people will respect this. The ones who don't. The ones who pressure you for an immediate answer, who make you feel guilty for needing time to think. Those are the people who are invested in your automatic compliance, not your authentic participation. Spend 1 hour daily with no input, no music, no podcasts, no voices but your own. This is the hardest one for most people. We've become addicted to external input, external stimulation, external distraction. We've forgotten how to be alone with our own thoughts. But this hour is crucial. This is when your authentic voice can finally be heard above the noise of everyone else's opinions. This is when your dreams can surface. This is when your true feelings can emerge. Don't try to make this hour productive. Don't use it for planning or problem solving. Just be. Sit with whatever comes up. If sadness emerges, let it. If anger surfaces, welcome it. If dreams whisper, listen. This is archaeological work. You're excavating the parts of yourself that have been buried under constant stimulation and distraction. Additional practices for deepening your unavailability. Create communication boundaries. Designate certain hours as unreachable time. Maybe 8 to 10 p.m. is your time. Maybe Sunday mornings are sacred. Maybe you don't respond to work emails after 6 p.m. Whatever boundaries feel right for you, create them and communicate them clearly. You don't need permission to have boundaries. You don't need to justify them. You don't need to make them convenient for others. Practice the art of saying no without explanation. No, I can't do that. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I'm not available. Full stop. No justification. No elaborate excuse. No apology for having limits. This will feel incredibly uncomfortable at first. You'll want to soften it, explain it, apologize for it. Don't. Let the no stand on its own. Let people deal with their feelings about your boundaries. That's not your job. Schedule time for productive unavailability. This is time that's officially blocked on your calendar for your own purposes. Maybe it's reading, maybe it's walking, maybe it's just thinking. The key is that it's scheduled, protected time that belongs to you alone. Watch what happens. Watch who gets angry when you're not immediately available. Watch who respects your boundaries and who tries to violate them. Watch how different you feel when you're not constantly accessible for consumption. Pay attention to the people who say things like, "You never answer your phone anymore. You're becoming so antisocial. You've changed, and not in a good way. You used to be so much more fun." These people are mourning the loss of your performed self. They're grieving the person who was always available, always accommodating, always putting their needs first. And that's okay. Let them grieve. But don't resurrect that person just to comfort them. Also, pay attention to the people who say things like, "I love seeing you prioritize yourself. You seem more like yourself lately. I respect that you have boundaries. You're glowing." These people are celebrating your authentic emergence. They're the ones who want to know the real you, not just the convenient version of you. You're not being selfish. You're being selective. You're not being antisocial. You're being archaeological. You're digging for the person who got buried under everyone else's needs. And here's what most people don't understand about unavailability. When you become unavailable to everyone, you become essential to yourself. When you stop being accessible to every demand, you become accessible to your own inner wisdom. When you stop being found by others, you start finding yourself. The power, what emerges from the dig. When you stop being available to everyone, you become available to yourself. When you stop being found by others, you start finding yourself. When you stop answering their questions, you start asking your own. And that's when the real you starts speaking. That voice you hear in the shower, in the car, in those moments between sleep and waking, that's not your inner critic, that's your inner truth. That's the archaeologist who's been waiting for you to hand over the tools. But let's talk about what this voice actually sounds like, because most people have been so disconnected from their authentic inner voice that they've forgotten how to recognize it. Your inner critic sounds like, "You should be doing more. You're not good enough. What will people think? You're being selfish. You're going to fail. You're too much. You're not enough." Your inner truth sounds like, "This feels right. I want to try this. This doesn't align with who I am. I need time to think. I deserve better. This brings me joy. I trust myself." The critic is urgent, demanding, comparative. The truth is calm, knowing, unique to you. The critic speaks in shoulds and shouldn'ts. The truth speaks in wants and won'ts. The critic is concerned with external validation. The truth is concerned with internal alignment. When you create space through sacred unavailability, you create the conditions for your inner truth to emerge. But emergence takes time. Just like archaeological excavation, this is delicate work that cannot be rushed. Lao Tzu said, "At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are and you know what you want. But you can't hear that center when you're constantly broadcasting to the periphery. You can't access your inner knowing when you're always responding to external demands. You can't discover your authentic desires when you're busy fulfilling everyone else's expectations." Think of it this way. Your authentic self is like a quiet radio station. It's always broadcasting, but the signal is subtle, gentle. When you're surrounded by the loud noise of everyone else's expectations, demands, and opinions, you can't hear your own station. But when you turn down the external volume through sacred unavailability, suddenly your own signal becomes clear, and what you discover might surprise you. You might discover that you actually hate small talk and love deep conversations. You might find that you're drawn to creative expression in ways you never allowed yourself to explore. You might realize that you've been living in the wrong city, working in the wrong field, or even being in relationships that don't nourish your soul. You might discover that you have strong opinions about things you never let yourself think about. You might find that you have dreams you've been suppressing because they seemed impractical or impossible. You might realize that your idea of success is completely different from what you've been pursuing. This is what emergence looks like. It's not always comfortable. Sometimes your authentic truth will contradict everything you've built your life around. Sometimes it will require difficult conversations, major life changes, or disappointing people you care about. But here's what's more uncomfortable: spending your entire life living someone else's version of who you should be, dying with your authentic self still buried inside you. Reaching the end of your life and realizing you never actually lived it. You just performed. It's signs that your authentic self is emerging. You start having preferences about things you used to be indifferent about. You start caring about how you spend your time in ways you never did before. You become less willing to tolerate situations that drain your energy. You find yourself saying no to things that used to feel obligatory. You become more interested in your own thoughts and feelings. You start journaling, or thinking deeply about your experiences, or having internal conversations about what you really want. You become curious about yourself in ways you never were when you were focused on pleasing others. You start noticing what brings you joy versus what brings you approval. These are often different things. Joy comes from alignment with your authentic self. Approval comes from performing the role others want you to play. You become protective of your energy in new ways. You start recognizing which people, activities, and environments energize you and which ones deplete you. And you start making choices based on energy management rather than obligation management. You develop what I call authentic intuition, the ability to quickly sense whether something is right for you or not. You don't need long pros and cons lists anymore. You can feel in your body whether something aligns with who you're becoming. Your relationships start changing. Some people will be threatened by your emergence and will try to pull you back into your old patterns. Others will be fascinated by your authenticity and will want to know how you found yourself. New people will be attracted to your genuine energy. The archaeology of daily life. Once your authentic self starts emerging, everyday life becomes an archaeological site. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to choose authenticity over performance. Every decision becomes a chance to honor your truth rather than manage others' expectations. You start asking different questions. Does this align with who I'm becoming? Am I doing this from love or from fear? What would I choose if no one else's opinion mattered? How does this feel in my body? What is my authentic yes? What is my authentic no? And you start making different choices. Small ones at first, choosing the restaurant you actually want to go to instead of the one you think others will prefer. Wearing clothes that feel authentic to you rather than clothes that project the image you think you should have. Then bigger ones, changing careers to align with your values. Ending relationships that require you to perform rather than be yourself. Moving to places that feel like home to your authentic self rather than places that look good on paper. This is what it means to live archaeologically. To make decisions based on your discoveries about who you really are, rather than assumptions about who you should be. Your new excavation orders. You came here feeling lost. You're leaving with a map, not to where you should go, but to where you should dig. Your archaeological mission. Identify the layers. What voices are yours? What voices are theirs? This is detailed detective work. You need to examine each belief, each fear, each dream, and ask, where did this come from? Is this authentically mine? Or did I inherit it? Start with your fears. Write down your top 5 fears about being yourself, about setting boundaries, about disappointing others. Now ask, whose voice do I hear when I think these thoughts? Does this sound like my mother? My father? My culture? My religion? My first boss? Often our deepest fears about authenticity aren't even ours. They're inherited from people who were afraid of their own authenticity. Do the same with your dreams. What do you secretly want that you've never told anyone? What do you fantasize about when you're alone? What would you pursue if you knew you couldn't fail and no one would judge you? Now ask, am I avoiding this dream because I genuinely don't want it? Or because someone else told me it was impossible, impractical, or inappropriate? 2. Examine the artifacts. What choices have you made from fear? What choices from love? Go through your major life decisions, career choices, relationship choices, living situations, financial decisions. For each one ask, was this choice made from expansion or contraction? Did I feel bigger or smaller after making this choice? Did it feel like moving towards something I wanted or away from something I feared? The choices made from love will feel different in your body when you remember them. Even if they were difficult, even if they didn't work out the way you planned, they'll feel like integrity. They'll feel like you. The choices made from fear will feel heavy, constrained, like you were wearing someone else's clothes. They might have looked good from the outside, but they never felt quite right from the inside. Date the deposits. When did you stop trusting yourself? When did you start performing? This is crucial archaeological work. There was a time in your life when you trusted your own instincts, when you said what you meant, when you pursued what interested you without worrying about others' opinions. What happened? When did that change? Was there a specific event, a particular person, a cultural message that convinced you to stop trusting yourself? Maybe it was the first time someone laughed at your dreams. Maybe it was when someone told you that you were too much or not enough. Maybe it was when you realized that being yourself led to rejection or conflict. Understanding when and why you stopped trusting yourself is key to learning how to trust yourself again. Preserve what matters. What parts of who you've been deserve to survive? Not everything about your performed self was false. Some of it was genuine. Some of your people-pleasing came from authentic kindness. Some of your accommodation came from real love. Some of your helpfulness came from genuine desire to contribute. The goal isn't to become selfish or uncaring. The goal is to become consciously caring rather than compulsively caring. To help others from choice rather than from obligation. To be kind from strength rather than from fear. What aspects of who you've been reflect your authentic values? What parts of your personality bring you joy rather than just approval? What qualities do you genuinely like about yourself, not just what others have praised you for? These are the treasures you want to preserve as you excavate your authentic self. 5. Display your findings. Who do you become when you're alone with your truth? This is the ultimate archaeological question. When there's no audience, no expectations, no performance required, who are you? What do you think about? What do you care about? What makes you laugh? What makes you cry? What fascinates you? What disgusts you? What do you want to create? What do you want to experience? What do you want to contribute to the world? This version of you, the private you, the authentic you, the you that exists when nobody's watching. This is who you're excavating. This is who you're becoming. This is who you've always been underneath all the layers of performance and accommodation. Your archaeological toolkit. The Daily Dig. Each evening, ask yourself 3 questions. When did I feel most like myself today? When did I perform rather than be authentic? What is one small way I can honor my truth tomorrow? The boundary brush. This is your tool for gently but firmly establishing limits. Practice saying, "Let me think about that and get back to you. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that." Or, use this brush to carefully separate what belongs to you from what belongs to others. The authentic artifact test. Before making any decision, ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? Am I choosing this from love or fear? Will my future self thank me for this choice? If the answer feels like expansion, proceed. If it feels like contraction, investigate further. The sacred silence shovel. Use this daily to dig through the noise and reach your authentic voice. 1 hour of silence, no external input, just you and your inner wisdom. The Relationship Sifter. This tool helps you separate transformational relationships from transactional ones. Ask, does this person love me for who I am or what I do? Do they celebrate my growth or resist it? Can I be authentic in this relationship without fear of rejection? Remember, archaeologists don't create what they find. They uncover what was always there. You're not becoming someone new. You're uncovering who you've always been underneath all the layers of conditioning, expectation, and performance. Your authentic self isn't something you need to build. It's something you need to excavate. It's been there all along, waiting patiently beneath the surface, sending up signals through your dreams, your body sensations, your moments of spontaneous joy, your unexplained resistances. Every time you felt uncomfortable in a situation that looked perfect on paper, that was your authentic self signaling. Every time you felt energized by something others thought was weird or impractical, that was your authentic self speaking. Every time you had a gut feeling that contradicted logical reasoning, that was your archaeological instinct guiding you toward truth. You're not lost. You're being found. By yourself. Finally. And that makes you the most dangerous person in any room. Someone who knows who they are when no one is watching. The danger of authenticity. Why dangerous? Because authentic people can't be controlled through manipulation. They can't be managed through guilt. They can't be leveraged through their need for approval. They make decisions based on internal compass, rather than external pressure. Authentic people ask inconvenient questions like, why do we do it this way? And what if there's another option? And who benefits from me believing this? They say things like, that doesn't align with my values, and I need time to think about that, and I disagree, and I choose differently. They prioritize integrity over harmony. They choose truth over peace. They value authenticity over approval. This threatens systems built on compliance. It challenges relationships built on convenience. It disrupts environments that depend on your automatic agreement. But it also creates something beautiful. A life that feels genuinely yours. The ripple effect. When you become unavailable to everyone, you become essential to yourself. But the effects don't stop there. Your authenticity gives others permission to be authentic too. Think about the people in your life who are most genuinely themselves. How do you feel around them? Probably more relaxed, more honest, more willing to drop your own performance. Their authenticity creates space for yours. This is what you're becoming. This is the gift you're giving not just to yourself, but to everyone who encounters you. You're becoming a safe space for authenticity, a person others can be real around because you're real yourself. Your children, if you have them, will learn that they don't have to perform for love. Your friends will discover they can share their true thoughts without judgment. Your colleagues will find they can express their real ideas without fear. Your romantic partners will realize they can be themselves without losing your affection. This is how authenticity spreads, not through preaching or teaching, but through modeling. Not through telling others how to live, but through living authentically yourself. Living your excavation. The archaeological process doesn't end when you discover your authentic self. It's an ongoing practice. Every day brings new opportunities to choose authenticity over performance, truth over convenience, integrity over approval. Some days you'll nail it. You'll respond from your center. Make decisions from your truth. Maintain your boundaries with grace. You'll feel aligned, integrated, authentically powerful. Other days you'll slip back into old patterns. You'll people please, avoid conflict, say yes when you mean no. You'll catch yourself performing again, and you'll feel disappointed. This is normal. This is part of the process. Authenticity isn't a destination. It's a practice. Each time you catch yourself performing, each time you choose to return to truth, you're strengthening your archaeological skills. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate with your learning process. Remember that you're undoing decades of conditioning. You're rewiring neural pathways that have been in place since childhood. This takes time, practice, and lots of self-forgiveness. Your authentic future. Imagine yourself 1 year from now having practiced these archaeological principles consistently. Imagine having clear boundaries that you maintain without guilt. Imagine making decisions based on your authentic desires rather than others' expectations. Imagine relationships where you can be completely yourself without fear of rejection. Imagine work that aligns with your values, living situations that feel like home to your authentic self, daily routines that nourish your soul rather than just managing others' opinions of you. Imagine the energy you'll have when you're not constantly managing your image, monitoring your performance, or suppressing your truth. Imagine the creativity that will flow when you're not using all your mental bandwidth to figure out what others want from you. Imagine the peace that comes from knowing exactly who you are and choosing to be that person regardless of external circumstances. This isn't fantasy. This is your archaeological future. This is what emerges when you commit to the dig, when you honor your excavation process, when you trust that your authentic self is worth uncovering. When you become unavailable to everyone, you become essential to yourself. If this archaeological journey resonates with you, if you're ready to dig deeper, hit subscribe and the notification bell, because what we've uncovered today is just the surface layer. The complete continuation of this video is in the description below, along with the link to our next episode, How to Be Your Authentic Self, where we'll take everything we've discovered today and turn it into a practical roadmap for living authentically. In episode 2, How to Be Your Authentic Self, we'll identify the exact layers burying your real self and give you the tools to excavate them one by one. We'll explore the difference between your inherited identity and your chosen identity, and you'll learn to distinguish between authentic guilt and manipulative guilt. This isn't just a YouTube series, it's a daily transformation. A philosophical dig that will change how you see yourself forever. Each episode builds on the last, taking you deeper into the excavation of your authentic self every single day. By the end of this journey, you won't just know who you are. You'll have the tools to keep discovering who you're becoming. You'll live from your archaeological findings rather than everyone else's expectations. You'll be unavailable to everyone and essential to yourself. This isn't just a YouTube series, it's a 6-week transformation, a philosophical dig that will change how you see yourself forever. Each episode builds on the last, taking you deeper into the excavation of your authentic self. By the end of this journey, you won't just know who you are. You'll have the tools to keep discovering who you're becoming. You'll live from your archaeological findings rather than everyone else's expectations. You'll be unavailable to everyone and essential to yourself. Your first excavation assignment. Before we meet again tomorrow, I want you to begin your preliminary dig. Here's your assignment. The 7-day unavailability experiment. Implement the sacred unavailability practices we discussed. Turn off read receipts, create response delays, say, "Let me think about it," and spend 1 hour daily in silence. The authentic voice journal. Each day, write for 10 minutes answering this question. If no one else's opinion mattered, what would I choose? Don't edit, don't censor, just write. Let your authentic voice speak onto the page. The relationship audit. Make a list of all your significant relationships. For each one, ask, can I be authentically myself in this relationship without fear of rejection? Notice which relationships feel expansive and which feel constrictive. The decision archaeology. Look at 3 recent decisions you made. For each one, identify whether it was made from fear or love, from obligation or desire, from performance or authenticity. What patterns do you notice? Comment below. What's the first layer you need to excavate? What voice have you been silencing? What aspect of your authentic self have you been hiding? Share your archaeological discoveries in the comments. Not only will this help solidify your own insights, but it will also help others who are beginning their own excavation process. Remember, we're all archaeologists here, all digging for our authentic selves beneath the layers of who we thought we were supposed to be. See you tomorrow for the deep dig. Until then, trust the process, trust the discomfort, trust that what you're feeling isn't lostness, it's emergence. You're not lost, you're being found by yourself. Finally, and that changes everything.